Hey guys, I'm coming back to you with another Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones video. For this video, I've decided to change up the format a little bit, just so you guys will have something more visual to look at than just my face. I know I'm a pretty looking guy, but I think you guys might want some visual representation of the things I'm talking about. So I'm going to get started out like that. Today, I wanted to go into one of the most popular Game of Thrones / A Song of Ice and Fire characters, Tyrion Lannister. I will have spoilers from the books in this video, so if you guys aren't caught up with the end of A Dance of Dragons, or A Dance with Dragons, my bad, I would suggest you probably stay away from this video because we're going to look at his evolution as a character in a large arc. So this video is predominantly going to be about Tyrion Lannister and the way his character evolves from the start of A Game of Thrones to the end of A Dance with Dragon, and what I think the possible implications of his storyline and the ending of that storyline are going to be. So that's what this video is mainly going to be about. At the beginning of the Game of Thrones, we see Tyrion Lannister as somewhat of a comic relief character. He likes tits, wine, and enjoys the pleasures of life, and doesn't seem to be too concerned with the struggles going on around him. He really seems like somebody who's kind of getting caught up in the mix as a result of his bloodline and being of Lannister descent. Tries to carry on his family name as well as he can, but of course he does fall prey to some of his own desires. He's a relatable character, he's funny, he's witty, and a lot of people really associate with him, especially George R. R. Martin himself. I personally enjoy Tyrion's stuff just the same way everyone else does. I think he's a great character, and when I see his chapter, I always get excited to see what type of antics he'll get into. Tyrion's scene with Ross in the show was interesting, and I think it does show that he has a sweet side to his character, and it's pretty impressive that he has that considering how he was frowned upon by his father and blamed for his mother's death almost his entire upbringing, and hated by his sister at that. So that's why I think Tyrion is a cool character. The one loving person in Tyrion's upbringing was Jaime Lannister. He also had Uncle Jerian, but he left at a young age to go find the ancestral Valyrian sword of House Lannister, and he hasn't returned since. Jaime was always nice to Tyrion throughout his childhood, and he didn't blame him at all for what happened to Joanna. When Tyrion gets in trouble at the Vale, the first person who wants to defend him is Jaime, although Lysa won't allow it. Another cool thing about Jaime and Tyrion's relationship is how Jaime feels like he has to protect Tyrion, and often they find each other in each other's shoes and think, what would Tyrion do in this situation? What would Jaime do in this situation? I could tell that they were very good friends when they were kids, and I don't think Cersei was very happy with the way Jaime felt about Tyrion. I don't think Tywin was either, at that matter. After Lysa imprisons Tyrion and he comes back from his trial by combat, he brings a few of the mountain clansmen of the Vale back with him and Bronn and kind of sets himself up back in the city. He's very surprised to learn that his father, who generally despises him, has named him Hand of the King after the death of Eddard Stark under King Joffrey, Baratheon, quote unquote. So this is when Tyrion gets his first real taste of power, and he begins to like it and really does a good job as the Hand of the King, and basically learns how to play the Game of Thrones in this small amount of time after coming back from Lysa's. And he does sort of mature into a character who is very politically active at this point in time. As full-fledged Hand of the King, Tyrion encountered a few different trials. One was the plot by Maester Pycelle and Cersei to uncover exactly what he was doing. Tyrion didn't have a lot of allies in court, and most of the spies were working for Cersei, so he made a makeshift alliance with Varys, who had goals that Tyrion wasn't quite aware of at the time, and they really worked against Cersei's wishes. I think the best way that you could describe their relationship was they were friends who had mutual respect for each other. Right before the Battle of the Blackwater, Varys helps Tyrion uncover the truth about what Cersei's been hiding all the wildfire for, and basically helps him adequately prepare the city for defense. Varys even said at Tyrion's own trial by combat that he knew that Tyrion was the only one who could save the city in its hour of darkness with Stannis Baratheon and his army approaching. So Varys does think highly of Tyrion. When Tyrion raised his chain in Blackwater Bay and successfully took command of the Sandor Clegane's army, he really began to feel like he was one of the best players in the Game of Thrones, and I think that's quite true of him. He's extremely clever, and he manages to outdo Stannis' major fleet and completely smash them, saving King's Landing from Stannis Baratheon's army. So I think that is an important thing that Tyrion does, and I do believe that he should have been rewarded for it more than he was. Tyrion was not at all happy about the treatment he got from his father. His father kind of pushed aside his accomplishments, mostly because of his own hatred for him. And Tyrion, as he's becoming more self-aware and realizing how valuable he truly is finally beginning to realize the people around him see him more as a cruel joke, despite all the things he's accomplished for the realm and all the people of King's Landing that he saved that still don't love him like they love Joffrey even. After being falsely accused of murdering Joffrey, when it was really Olenna, Tyrell, and Littlefinger, Tyrion is sentenced to death. Although he tries a desperate trial by combat, his champion, Prince Oberyn Martell, is defeated by Gregor Clegane, and Tyrion is sentenced to death. Before Tyrion is about to be executed, Jaime, his brother, comes in and saves him from the horrible fate. Varys is the one who really gets Tyrion out of there, and he stays a while in King's Landing while Tyrion is let loose. Jaime kind of commanded him to, but Varys has his own motives, and that's not really what this video is about. So anyways, before Jaime sets Tyrion free, he tells him how his first wife, Tysha, was actually not a whore, and Tywin only made him say that to avoid Tyrion marrying someone of lowborn status. So this infuriates Tyrion, naturally, because it was the only time in his life he'd ever found love. Tyrion basically hears this from Jaime, and he's not a whole fan of the Lannisters right now. He curses Jaime, Cersei, and Tywin for being mean to him his whole life, and basically just goes up there with a crossbow. First he finds Shae in his father's bed. Shae was sort of like his prostitute girlfriend who testified against him. He strangles her with the necklace of the hand and walks in to find his father on the privy. So they start up a little conversation, and Tyrion asks Tywin about what happened to Tysha, and Tywin, who's kind of being an asshole and thinks Tyrion's not actually going to shoot him, responds with the clever line, "Wherever whores go." So Tywin gets shot the fuck up. Tyrion's not having any of it. He basically shoots him 3 times, reloads the crossbow, and then walks out of there like a badass. And at this point, his character is transformed and he is no longer subject to the whims of his father and his family, but he also loses out on his Lannister status and gold and is forced to go into exile to find himself. So basically, the ship that Tyrion gets put on sort of finds its way to Illyrio Mopatis, his big estate in Pentos, where Illyrio kind of sends Tyrion off to go find Daenerys and maybe give her information about Westeros and all the different things that she's going to need before she comes over. And he also sends Tyrion with young Griff and Griff, who are Jon Connington and Aegon, and they're also major characters in the story. So Tyrion gets set on a big arc at this point in time. So an interesting thing we see about Tyrion is his games of Savas, which I love. He's playing a game, but he's also thinking about the strategy of Westeros while he's playing the game, and he's really gauging the people he's around. So I think Tyrion at this point is a good judge of character and a good judge of people. From only playing Savas and minor clues, he's able to deduce Aegon Targaryen's identity. He plays games of Savas with Penny, and he learns a lot of things about her that way. And he learns how she feels about the world, and in this he reflects on his own dwarfness, you know? And when he's playing Savas, he feels like the person he was when he raised Tyrion's chains, and not like Yallo or Hugor Hill, someone he's impersonating, because identity is a strong theme in the series. Tyrion's identity has changed a lot. He's been comic relief, he's been the Hand of the King, he's been the Hand of the King in exile, if you could call it that. He's been a kinslayer. He's been a kingslayer, and now at this point in time, he's nothing more than a simple show dwarf and a slave at that. So I think the games of Savas really bring him back to where he wants to be. And I think at the end of the day, Tyrion does see himself as becoming the Lord of Casterly Rock, in some ways because he feels he deserves it, and in other ways to spite his father. Tyrion's relationship with Penny does sort of show the change in his character. I think old Tyrion probably would have made japes with her, but the new Tyrion sort of respects her in a way because she's had to live a harsh life and has seen so many terrible things, and also recognizes her own childish innocence. And he's more thoughtful and caring than he was at the beginning of the books, where he was sort of a angry little dwarf who liked to make fun of things. But now he's sort of changed his outward appearance at least, and he's treating Penny with respect and sort of playing along with her romantic advances that she makes at him. And I think her way of looking at things is kind of simplistic compared to Tyrion's more complex way, but he doesn't treat her like he's better than her at all, which is one of the interesting things about his character that I find appealing. So Tyrion also really does a good job of nurturing and caring and protecting Penny, and is kind of making sure that she stays safe throughout all the turmoil that she and he go through during A Dance with Dragons, from the ship all the way to the slavers' auction and then into the Second Sons. After the death of their slave master, Penny and Tyrion, especially Tyrion, are lucky enough to come into contact with the Second Sons. The Second Sons are a mercenary group headed by Brown Ben Plum, who's sort of a recent takeover of the group. Um, Brown Ben Plum was an interesting character, and I found that the fact that he had a Westerosi name and the fact that he was dark skinned was interesting because he's one of the few characters in the books. And he has a vested interest in Tyrion and is hoping he'll be a good investment because once Tyrion becomes Lord of Casterly Rock, he's going to be able to help Brown Ben Plum out. Brownman Plum sort of anticipates the upcoming Westerosi conflict and sees Tyrion as the smart guy he is and is going to back him depending on how Tyrion fares in the Battle of Meereen. And right now they are outside the walls attacking, but the allegiances of the mercenary companies are shaky at best at all times, and they're really known for changing sides to the winning part of the battle before it happens. So what does all this have to do with Tyrion's character development? So I think one way you could look at it is Tyrion's evolution. He's become more self-aware, and he's really beginning to understand what the rest of Westeros and the realm is quite like. Tyrion was sheltered for most of his life, and although he did grow up to be a wise and wisdomful guy, Tyrion kind of didn't undergo much turmoil or drama. And after learning what it's like to be one of the biggest rulers and most important people in Westeros, I think he's finally ready to get what's rightfully his with Casterly Rock. And with Tywin out of the way and the coming battle set to happen, I think Tyrion is in a good spot. He's gone through a lot, but that's important because he's learned what it takes to get to the top and what he needs to do to become a great leader and Lord of Casterly Rock, no matter who he supports in the upcoming battle. Obviously, there's a lot of stake for Tyrion's character with the Second Sons and how they fare after the Battle of Meereen, but he has signed a contract with them and has clearly acknowledged that he is Tyrion of House Lannister and the rightful Lord of Casterly Rock. So I think Tyrion has a very clear direction that he needs to accomplish, and I don't think he's after the Iron Throne at all. And even if the rumors of him being a secret Targaryen are true, I think he's not one of the people who thinks he's going to be king. I think Tyrion's main objective is to get what's rightfully his and what he deserves, and that is the seat of Casterly Rock. So obviously, Tyrion is more like Tywin than any of his other children, and I think one of the people to realize that is Yennefer Frey, and she says as much to Jaime. So I think it would be kind of ironic for Tyrion to sort of become the person that Tywin was, but maybe he can channel some of his good inner instincts and be a little bit more of a benevolent lord than Tywin was and not commit so many atrocities. But I do think that he's a smart strategist, cunning, and a very good Savas player at that. At the end of the series, I could really see Tyrion backing one of the Targaryen or Baratheon contenders for the throne and eventually securing his seat of Casterly Rock. I know Stannis is no stranger to kinslaying, and I don't think he'll be too mad at Tyrion about that. Thanks for watching, guys. That was just sort of my quick take on the Tyrion Lannister video, where I wanted to just get into the way he's changed since book one, in my opinion, and what I think are going to be his major plot points in the upcoming books, and where I really see him ending up. So that's pretty much it for that, and I hope you guys like this new style of video because I think I might be changing to this for the future. So thanks for watching, and I'll try to keep up with more.